In The Jack of Souls, Herrick has only 2 hours to live, unless he can win the gods' favor. Please welcome Writers of the Future judge Larry Niven and actor Mr. Jim Meskimen.
Good evening. Stephen Merlino lives in Seattle, Washington, where he writes, plays, or else writes plays if they got the comma wrong, and teaches high school English. He lives with his wife, 2 fabulous kids, and 3 attacked chickens. Stephen's winning story, The Jack of Souls, is a story taken from his novel of the same name. Please congratulate the author of Jack of Souls, Stephen Merlino.
Thank you very much. I feel very honored to be here tonight as part of this pay-in to imagination. In 15 years of teaching high school English, I've developed a kind of recognition for certain types of students, distracting students. There's the kid who waits, just can't stand to sit, and waits till after the bell for me to invite him to sit in his chair. And there's another who can't even stand still and must constantly be in motion, and so arrives early to class, dumps her backpack, and then gets out in the hall so she can glide about until the bell rings, and most likely 30 seconds after the bell rings, glide back in and with reluctance sit. There's also the student who forgets his pen or misplaces it or can't find it. He's there on time, but he can't find his pen. And so he then, in the first 30 seconds of class in which I'm usually divulging some precious, important information, distracting the people around him looking for a pen and apologetically trying to borrow one. Well, this week, I learned, sitting in the student seat, that I am that student. I will return to my classroom with a new appreciation for those kids. This was actually pointed out to me by one of the judges. I'm not going to say who it was, but he's Australian. So my first thanks go to our teachers who were magnificent. And primarily this was David Farland and Tim Powers, who spent hours and hours with us for days on end, and just divulging everything they could think of that would help us in our careers, either in the manner of craft or discipline or in the business end, and we are so grateful. And in addition, of course, there were many other speakers, and every one of them is taking time out of their life to share with us. We're so grateful, and it's made an immense difference already in our concept of what is possible. Additionally, of course, we have to thank the author services people. Joni, who was the first voice I heard when she called with the news. The first person I heard or saw was Joanne at the airport, and then there were all the people who spent every day with us in that room, basically. Sophie and Maliva and Adrian, many more as well. But if you weren't there doing this to make this happen and grease the gears, it wouldn't happen. And because of you, all of us are going to go home with a new conception of our lives as 2 halves, what happened before, what it was like before Writers of the Future, and what it was like after. And that's an immense gift. And of course, it wouldn't have happened at all if Ron Hubbard hadn't had the unbelievable foresight in 1982 to set this up and then will all of the royalties of his books to fund it every year. It's just, and so of course, we're bound to pay this forward, and I too can't wait to do that. If it weren't for them, and for him. I would never have met, for instance, Marcela Ugarte, who did the wonderful illustration for the Jack of Souls. Such a sensitive and thoughtful reading, and I never thought to see it interpreted by someone else, and that was really wonderful. Finally, no writer achieves anything without the support of many people around them, and I want to list just a couple here. All the people who put up with the outrageous symptoms of being a writer, primarily this tendency to vanish into a hole for hours and hours doing apparently nothing, except maybe obsessively arranging and rearranging tiny black squiggles on paper in an attempt at telepathy with another kind of obsessive called a reader. My wife refers to this as my other wife. So my most important thanks come to my family. I would start with my mother, who took me to my first writer's workshop because she saw something there inside of me. To my father, who taught me long patience. To the writers groups, Seattle Writers Cramp and the Wayward Gang, my best friends who suffered through many iterations of my novel. And finally, my wonderful kids who are here in the audience, row G, who continually inspire me with their curiosity and intelligence and joy of life. This is a daily inspiration and blessing. And finally, my wife, who for years put up with nothing to show for my writing as I learned the craft, and especially for the faith she had in me during those years. I guess I'd just like to close in saying that there's as much of you in this as there is me.
Marisela Ugarte Peña comes to us from Monterrey, Mexico. Hey. Mari's grandmother, an artist herself, nurtured Mari's interests. Eventually, Mari began to develop her work in conjunction with an online community where she developed many close friends. Now, Mari is creating diverse illustrations for games. She's working hard, polishing her art and stories so that she can develop her own original graphic novels. Please congratulate illustrator of The Jack of Souls, Marisela Ugarte Peña.
Okay. Well, to begin with, there was a little bit of a mistake. Those illustrations were not mine, so later on I will show you my illustrations on my portfolio at the signing table. So I'll be waiting for you there. So, buenas noches, good evening. It is incredible that just a few days ago I arrived to LA and I had a wonderful, amazing time on this workshop, and I'm incredibly grateful to the people who made this possible. They're so funny and sweet. I would like to thank L. Ron Hubbard and the staff and judges from this contest for this opportunity. They did an amazing job, and I had so much fun. Many thanks to my friends who have always pushed me to work harder. They're such a huge inspiration in my life, and without them, I think I wouldn't have gone this far. And especially great thanks to my writer, Stephen Merlino, who made my job much easier by providing such an inspiring story to work with. And And muchas gracias a mi familia por siempre apoyarme. Los quiero mucho aunque no se los diga. Y muchas gracias por cuidar a mis mascotas cuando no estoy. Gracias.
In Squalor and Sympathy, Anna works in a factory where her magic won't even provide for her barest needs. Please welcome Writers of the Future judge Nancy Kress and Illustrators of the Future 2011 Grand Prize winner, Irvin Rodriguez.
It's my privilege to introduce Matt Dovey, the author of Squalor and Sympathy. Matt comes to us from rural England, where he not only writes stories, but also brews wine, takes photographs, and participates in live role play. He keeps an ideas that need writing list, and we are all very glad that Squalor and Sympathy came off the list, into his computer, and across the Atlantic to us. The story concerns magical powers among the oppressed poor in such a detailed Victorian England that I could see, hear, and even smell the textile mills. This accomplished story is his first publication, but is certainly not going to be his last. Please join with me in congratulating Matt Dovey.
Now, being British, I would like to take this opportunity to tender some important apologies. First and foremost, to my gorgeous wife Claire, for all the times I will drift off during a conversation while I think about some plot thread. For all the times I will come downstairs from putting the children to bed and sit straight down at the keyboard, ignoring all the mess they've left in the front room. And for all the times I come up to bed late at midnight, having been writing far later than is healthier for me, and I wake you up. I am sorry. I couldn't do this without you, and I miss you, and I love you. I would like to apologise to my boys, James and William, for all the times playtime was interrupted for me to get my phone out and write an idea down. And to my daughter Alicia, who can't use the computer without me sat behind her like a sullen teenager waiting for my turn. I'd like to apologise to my parents, Sarah and Graham, for all the Christmas days when I disappeared because I'd found the Discworld book under the tree and run off to read it cover to cover.